Okay. Hi, everyone. Here is SKALE team, and we're very happy to greet SKALE community and to open second SKALE token holder AMA. We have here the entire SKALE exec team, SKALE founders, and the people who run all the key like directions and verticals of SKALE building. So I will introduce who is on the AMAs today on the SKALE side. First of all, Jacka Holleran, SKALE CEO and co-founder.
Hello, and by the way, SKALE Labs CEO,
Yes.
we're the SKALE Labs team, to be clear.
Stan Kladko, SKALE Labs CEO, co-founder.
Hey guys.
Christine Perry,
Hi,
SKALE Labs VP Solutions Engineering. Chadwick Strange, SKALE Labs VP Product.
Hey everyone.
And myself, my name is Jenia Barkanova. I am VP of Marketing here at SKALE Labs. And so welcome everybody. I guess people are joining from all over the world. So hi everyone, and where are you guys joining from? We can chat in the, so just post your questions in the chat. Let us know where you guys are joining from. How is everyone doing? And there are several tabs. So there is chat tab, and there is questions tab. All the questions, it's better to just submit to the question tab. And we have people from
Belgium,
Oakland,
Mexico, San Francisco, Germany. Wow, people from all over the world. Awesome.
Switzerland,
Canada,
Jenia.
Lake Tahoe, Switzerland. All right.
Exciting. Yeah, welcome everybody. So we are, first of all, this is the SKALE first token holder AMA in 2021. So welcome everybody. And here is the agenda. We will, so first of all, we have collected some really great questions from all of you guys. Everybody who submitted good questions will receive a prize, which is a t-shirt. And everybody who will be asking good questions during the live AMA will also receive a prize, which is a t-shirt, which is very similar to the one that I am wearing right now. So get ready your best questions, and we will cover all the exciting updates and tell you everything that we're building, and also explain the long-term vision for SKALE and for building SKALE technology. And I will just open it up for Jack and Stan to take the stage.
Everybody. Really a pleasure to have everyone here. We're going to do these once a month. So if you don't get your question answered today, please get it in the queue next time. We're just excited to do these. And by the way, which brings up another topic. And I was very clear saying SKALE Labs, because the SKALE network is an open source network. We all collectively own the SKALE network. Anybody who has a token is an owner of the SKALE network. When it comes to updating the software, that's done through a multi-sig contract by many, many entities right now. That will soon be upgraded through on-chain voting, okay? So SKALE Labs is one of many, many companies that supports the network. And we're the core team, and we founded this and got this going, but we're, I think, an important, but really a small piece in scope of the broader SKALE ecosystem. And it's just been amazing over the last year to see all of the people, companies, individuals, geographies that are all participating in the network. And it's really community owned. And part of our goal for this AMA is to make sure everybody here is a piece, knows everything that's happening from the views of those people that work full time supporting the network. And that's, in part the SKALE Labs team. So we're excited to do this. And Stan, feel free to jump in and say something before we go into questions.
Yeah, I just want to say that we really want to answer all of your questions. And sometimes people ask generic questions, but it's also good to ask very specific questions or something that other people wouldn't kind of think about asking. So try asking interesting questions.
Yeah, that's great. And we had a lot of questions pre-submitted in a form. I will open up those, and then we will go and we will start taking questions from the question tab, which is live in the event. I really liked the question on SKALE, a long-term vision. And Jack and Stan, where do you see SKALE in 3 or 5 years?
Yeah. So hey, I'll kick this off. And by the way, I saw a question from someone saying why the SKALE Labs part. Well, there's always been a company called SKALE Labs that supported the SKALE network. There's a foundation in Liechtenstein that SKALE Labs gave all the financing to, passed off IP, and now it's all open source. Okay, so there's still an entity called SKALE Labs, and if you look at Filecoin, there's an entity called Protocol Labs, and Filecoin's a network, right? And SKALE and many crypto networks operate in this manner. So I like to just be clear about that, because nobody directly worked for the network. The network is a community-owned entity, okay? And it's really important to call that out, because when we think about where we're going in the next 3 to 5 years, SKALE is really trying to become, the goal of the SKALE network isn't just to be a single layer 2 solution, okay? SKALE's goal is to be the Web3 cloud. And I think a big piece of that is understanding the architecture and framework of how decentralized networks operate and blockchains operate. So let me give an example. So Ethereum, let's say there's this base level, it's a foundational level of a blockchain. Right now, there are sidechain solutions out there and roll-up solutions that have literally one entity, one component that is, and so if you look at some of the other scaling solutions, there's literally, I won't name names, but it's one blockchain, and it's called a sidechain. It's a fixed set of operators. A lot of them are highly centralized, and all it does is run transactions and smart contracts for Ethereum. What makes SKALE unique is that every single application gets its own blockchain. So there's this huge network of nodes, and in this very secure, cryptographically precise manner, it works with the Ethereum mainnet to assign computers or nodes to work for different applications. So if I have a gaming application, I get my own Elastic blockchain. If I have a music streaming application, I get my own Elastic blockchain. If I have my a DeFi application, a decentralized exchange, I get my own blockchain. And all of these blockchains, one, can communicate to the Ethereum mainnet. Two, they can run file storage, which makes them a cloud, right? They have further capabilities. You could run a whole application, front end, back end, using SKALE because of the advances in the SKALE system and the way you can use virtual machine in SKALE because of these enhanced block size limits and other functionality and performance improvements. SKALE just has more it can do in addition to the file storage, okay? And it also can run neural network models as inputs to smart contracts. There's a lot of things you can do, okay? And so what we're envisioning is it's not just that each application gets Ethereum scaling, they get Ethereum scaling and more, and each application that uses SKALE can instantly and sub-second times speak to other chains. And so the more and more chains that join the SKALE network, they all can settle back to Ethereum, and Ethereum becomes this very strong foundation that becomes even more valuable. And then ETH2, whether it's ETH1 or ETH2, it's a foundational layer. And then SKALE sits on top, and every single application that uses SKALE adds more and more network value to the SKALE network. And it becomes the future of the internet. That's the goal. And Stan's really, I think, the person, the technical visionary that this is his vision. I'd love, Stan, if you could talk about it a little bit as well.
Yeah, I just want to start that blockchain, when Satoshi Nakamoto 10 years ago introduced Bitcoin, after this event, Bitcoin has become a tool for people to fight against government bureaucracy, a tool for people to fight against corporate monopoly, and to decentralize. So people store money on Bitcoin because they can be anonymous, because they can freely transfer transactions around the world, and not to fight the government, but at least to fight government bureaucracy, right? So, but if you read the Satoshi's writings, there is now a website which actually includes all of the Satoshi's messages. If you read his messages, Satoshi clearly understood that at some point, one blockchain will not be enough to decentralize everything and fight government bureaucracy and corporate monopoly in everything. So he clearly understood that at some point, logically, you need to add more blockchains, and these blockchains need to talk to each other. So that was what Satoshi original idea. And now what we see in 2021, 10 years after, we see that people really come to this idea that you need to decentralize not only money, but also websites. You need to decentralize Facebook and Twitter and Uber and Google. And when we started SKALE with Jack in 2017, this idea wasn't so interesting as today. So 3 years passed, and I think people understand much better now than 4 years ago that Uber and Facebook and Google and Twitter, all of this stuff need to be decentralized. And the simplest way to decentralize the world is to replace every server by a blockchain. So you replace Google with a blockchain, you replace Facebook with a blockchain, you replace Twitter with a blockchain, you replace Airbnb with a blockchain, and so on. And when you have this, you decentralize the entire world, and now you don't have a corporate monopoly. So instead of Uber charging drivers 30% for each ride, drivers can have 0 fee. So essentially you have a fee economy where there's no fee, where the community, every single application, a decentralized application, becomes a community, and the community decides. So this business model turns out to be much better than the previous model, the previous world, which was very centralized. It was corporations, monopolies, lots of fees, lots of regulations, and things like that. So people clearly want decentralization, and this internet of blockchains that we are creating is the only possible solution. It's not like something that we just kind of came up with. This is a very logical combination of what Satoshi was telling and the internet as we know today. If we want to move from internet, from Web 2 to the new Web 3, the easiest way is to replace every server with a blockchain. And that's what we are doing. Now, this is not an easy task. And so we kind of compare ourselves internally to more like Tesla compared to Chevy Volt, right? When Chevy Volt was designed, they pretty much like took a battery and took a gas-powered car and put a battery inside in the trunk. And it's an easy thing to do, but it doesn't really give you a really like electric car. So if you want to design something really nice, it takes time. It took us about 3 years to come to where we are now, and it was pretty hard engineering. And at this moment in time, we have a pretty interesting system. We have the blockchains interact, they're fast, they're all ETH compatible, and we are targeting this system to actually replace internet as we know it in many years from now. It's clear that we're not gonna do it like next year or 2 years from now, but we do have this long-term vision that may take us 20 years. But at the end, we do have this vision of internet of blockchains, and that's definitely what people want. There's so much, especially this year, so much of people talking about decentralization and blockchain, and as new generation is raised, this new generation, for them, these problems become even more and more pressing. So people who are teenagers today, for them, this new virtual world is as real as the physical world, and they want this world to have fair rules. And the only way to get these fair rules is to get a blockchain. So that pretty much guarantees that a generation from now, the world is going to move to decentralization. So we're taking this pretty long-term approach at SKALE, building this thing, and we are hoping that people that like SKALE and our contributors will actually take this road together with us, which actually may take many years.
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you, Stan. Exciting vision and building the Web3 cloud that will allow every dApp in the world to run on its own blockchain, on its own extremely fast and cost-efficient blockchain. It's really massive. So let's talk about the product now and about updates to the existing code. We had questions in the pre-submitted set, and also we have these questions in those that are coming in live right now about SKALE contract and why does it take so much gas and fees. And there was a really exciting upgrade that was released literally last week. So Jack, would you please take this question?
Yeah, so I have some exciting news. I guess everyone here will know first before it's on Twitter and other places. And actually, before I say that, I just want to say we also, Jenny, we've got Netherlands, Ireland, Timbuktu, New York City, Nigeria, Germany, London, and others. So welcome. You're here for the announcement. Portugal, Long Beach, okay. Greece, all right. So all of you get to hear this first. Anyone who sent SKALE knows that it can be incredibly expensive, okay? It can be $40, $50 if the gas fees are high. And guess what? If you are staked and there's even more happening with your tokens, it could be even more expensive. Now, this is a hard problem to solve to minimize the gas fees, but we listened.
I think we lost Jack for a little bit.
Okay, I think I can answer this question in the meantime. So there are several answers to this question. The first question is SKALE, as I mentioned, is already is a pretty big thing. We've been building it for 3 years. If you go to look at our GitHub, you'll see lots of code, and people were pushing us to release. As you know, with any startup, startups that don't release, it's better to release something non-perfect than not release at all. So the best way for a startup to move is to release something, then iterate, and then people start complaining, and you fix it. So many startups follow this problem, because if you try to solve all of the problems from the beginning, your release may actually be postponed by years and years and years. So we wanted to release, and we knew that some of the things were not perfect, and the gas fees were not perfect. So we took this approach. We released something which was working, but didn't really have time to optimize gas fees. And now we're optimizing the gas fees. And the gas fees for the token transfers have been optimized literally today. And the other fees, all of them, we're working on all of them and optimizing all of them. And the team is really working hard. So you will see as time comes, well, everything will be pushed, and we will get to the minimum fees possible. Another thing is that our token is the first ever delegatable ERC20 token. Think about this, right? It's the first ever ERC20 token that you can use MetaMask, and you click and you delegate to someone. So it's a technology which has never been done before, and we kind of solved all kinds of problems and trade-offs. And now people who want to do a token, they can probably just fork our code, but we had to do everything from the scratch. So the token is more complex, just a regular ERC20 token, because any piece of, okay.
Stan, can I ask you, would you please cover what are the advantages of this innovation for token holders? So what are the advantages of being able to delegate directly from your wallet?
Correct. So there's a very significant advantage. In our system, if you have money, you have your SKALE tokens, you don't need to transfer them to anyone to delegate. So your tokens, they remain in your possession. You can see them in your MetaMask, right? So when you delegate, they don't go anywhere. And as part of it, you're not scared that someone will take them from you. Your tokens are actually in your MetaMask. It's just a portion of your tokens is delegated and locked. So you cannot transfer them, but they are still in your possession, right? So, and this was done for the first ever thing ever done on Ethereum mainnet. There was never a token like that. And so you actually keep on having your tokens, but you can delegate them and you can earn profits. That's pretty much the idea. And it's a very interesting idea. And I hope that now when we have our source open source, other people can take our token and use it. So that's pretty much the idea of this delegation without actually transferring the rights for the actual token. So that's one of the reasons the gas costs are a little higher. And then there is the third reason. People are asking, why don't you just put your token on SKALE? And in reality, I like comparing SKALE to SpaceX, because we are actually a pretty complex project. If you think about this, it's not just a single blockchain, it's internet of blockchains, and every single blockchain is fast. So it's mathematically provable, it uses lots of cryptography. So it's a pretty complex project. And because of this, we need to go in stages, which means that when we start, if we would put all of the stakeholders' tokens on Scale net, we would have to deal with the situation that any single bug could actually do significant harm to the tokens. And to compare this with SpaceX, when you do SpaceX, you don't put people on your first SpaceX flight, right? If you guys remember how many SpaceX flights ended with crashes, if you build a complex system, one, you need to, from the beginning, accept the fact there will be crashes and turbulence, essentially, initially, because it will be anyway. And if you try to make things perfect initially, it's impossible for complex systems. You know, you can build a knife to cut, like bread, right? And the knife can be perfect because it's simple. Or you can build a sword, like in movies, because just a piece of metal. So simple things can be built perfectly. But if you build SpaceX, it's a complex system with many interactions. And so complex systems always are built in a different way. They're evolved. There is trial and failure. There are crashes. It's a very different way to build a complex system. And we do need this because Scale is a pretty ambitious project. And we really can't make the system simpler because we do need the Internet of blockchains, because people do want to run Facebook and Twitter and Google on the internet. So the combination of these items led to the situation, but we are constantly working to improve the situation.
So I trust Stan took the handoff there. Yeah, I did. My transaction timed out. I needed Scale in Livestorm. So.
Yeah, welcome.
I heard the good news, Jenia. It's now about a third of what it was before, less than a third to send a Scale transaction, almost 1/4.
And to add really quick to what I said, one thing for you guys to understand is that blockchain now is in a very different position than it was with Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009. The blockchain that Satoshi Nakamoto built in 2009, and also the blockchain that Vitalik built in 2014, which was based on Satoshi's vision. These blockchains were very simple. You know, if you read Satoshi's paper, I don't remember how many pages, I think it's like 5 pages. It was simple, slow system. In a simple system, you can actually design almost perfectly initially until run. The systems that we build now are much more complex, because we are building a much more ambitious, computationally ambitious system. We're building a system that we hope at some point can get it to a Google size or the size of Facebook. How many computers, how many servers Google has? Probably over 10 million servers they have. When Scale can have over 10 million servers? Not this year, not next year, and we don't really know when, but it's a long-term vision. Because if we do want to actually build Facebook on blockchain, if we do want to build Google on blockchain, we do need to get to this size. And I expect this to be a pretty long-term process, which makes it really exciting. I think most people that work at Scale hope that they will work at Scale for the entire lifetime, because it's a pretty ambitious project.
Thank you, Stan. So with this, we covered some of the code advancements that were done recently. Let's move into product. Our community does have a lot of great questions around the features that will be built and deployed in the next year or two. So Chadwick, would you please take those and explain us what does a roadmap look like for 2021 and maybe a little further?
Absolutely. So I'll just cover on a high level the roadmap. There's a more detailed roadmap that we'll be releasing soon, so stay tuned for that. But in terms of this AMA, right now, as you all will probably know, we're working very aggressively on getting Scale chains and IMA to mainnet. So already we're deep in testnet and testing, and this is really important, very critical feature for us to transition the members of the SIP program to get them on Scale chains with the interchain messaging agent, which allows token transfers. It's like a token bridge between Scale chains and Ethereum networks. We're also working on gas optimizations. We've done a lot of gas optimizations in terms of tokens, token transfers, and delegations. There's plenty of other parts of our contract system, for example, distributed key generation and other parts that ultimately, when you're moving as fast as possible, there's plenty of room to improve and optimize gas in that regard. So that's another aspect that we're working on right now. Also, we're finishing up some security hardening for SKALE Manager and IMA. For those who may not know, we've done 2 audits already on SKALE Manager, and that was done last year. And those were mainly on the delegation, token flows, validator operations. And we recently completed a security audit for the remainder of SKALE Manager. And these are all functions related to the infrastructure of our network, how the network deploys scale chains, how nodes and DKG are processed. So it was more of an infrastructure cryptography audit. We also finished an audit on IMA as well, our interchain messaging agent. The audits don't stop there. The network will be doing continual audits, periodic audits of our system to ensure good security practices and best practices moving forward. We're also overhauling some documentation in terms of delegation, validation, dApp developer flows. So stay tuned on updated documentation throughout our developer portal. What we're planning to work on next is, again, once scale chains and IMA are on mainnet, we'll be working to improve the onboarding process, make it easier for dApp developers to get started with scale chains and IMA, improve that onboarding process, and as well have the ability to support community supporting of scale chain continuity. It's important to us that scale chains, if they support dApps and decentralized communities, it's important that the community can also support the scale chain over its lifetime. And also next, we'll be working on more flexible staking and delegation operations. This can include a variety of items such as different delegation periods, make it easier to restake rewards, redelegate in different timeframes. So that will be worked on next. And then later down the pathway, we'll be working on revamping how we measure validator or network performance. It's important that validators and node operators get feedback to ensure that the network is operating as performant as possible. It's also important to make sure that dApp developers are using performant scale chains. So we were working on this sort of multi-month process to migrate to validator-based monitoring. So that'll be really important. It'll give really great information to validators, give great information to dApp developers to ensure continued and performant network over time. And then, as you know, the network is open source. And following this, it's really important that external contributors can help guide and help make decisions of how the network evolves and operates. So we'll be following that model in terms of progressive decentralization, some governance, some community-based decision-making. So that will be something really important that we address in the long term. So again, a more detailed roadmap will be available soon. So please stay tuned. And that's the product update.
That's great, Chadwick, thank you. And I believe the next series of questions is the best for Christine. As Christine, there is a lot of questions that refer to partnerships, use cases, and dApps. For example, are there any partnerships, collaborations with DeFi, gaming, NFTs? What are the dApps that are launching on Scale soon? So Christine, would you please take those?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, right now it's a really exciting time for the SE team as we prepare the validators for running the network and helping us with the test net, onboarding and getting dApp developers ready to use the network, and also finalizing those partnerships that are critical for providing these supporting tools to really help using the Scale network really seamless and easy for dApp developers. I think before jumping into talking about DApp developers and use case, I'm going to back it up a bit and talk about the support that we're doing with the testnet with validators, because as Chadwick mentioned, it's really critical for us to get as much data as possible in this final testnet before mainnet launch. And so the SE team, we're really busy with our validators that are providing amazing support to making sure that we can make that a reality. We're getting a lot of great data and tests from this final testnet before mainnet launch, and so we just can't wait to see all of the latest updates coming from product and engineering released to the DApp developers soon. So I just wanted to cover that and make sure we touched on the validators supporting us. But in tandem with everything that's going on there, we're continuously checking in on the partners and DApp developers who've been testing on SKALE chains prior to their creation on mainnet. And mind you, we've been interacting with DApp developers and partners for the past 2 years. So we have a long roster of DApp developers and partners to prepare for this mainnet launch. And so in this check-in, as you can imagine, everyone has their own time schedule. We're developing, they're developing, and being in the Ethereum space, everyone's sort of like raising the ocean at the same time. And we want to be mindful of DApp developers and make sure that we're being respectful of their schedule as well. So that's why we're doing these check-ins, to kind of see where they are in their development and whether or not they'll be ready to be part of that first phase 1 launch as we launch the first few SKALE chains. And phase 1 launch is going to span over roughly 6 months. We're running quite a few programs that also provide grants to DApp developers looking to help us expedite finishing these partnerships as well, but to really highlight the use cases that everyone's really curious of. What I can say is that over the past few years, we've interacted with DeFi, gaming, healthcare, various NFT models, liquidity, music streaming, social networks, storage, and user privacy. And those are just a few of the use cases. I think what still continues to surprise me is that in this space, there's not a shortage of different use cases that can use the SKALE network. And I think, through the testing over the past 2 years, we've proven that it can satisfy all these different use cases and help them with their scalability needs. Lastly, what I'll cover here is just the partnership side, because we're in the process of bringing oracles, Web3 connectors, data querying networks, and some new wallet supports to SKALE chains in the near future. And that's just a fraction of the different partnerships that we have to finalize over the next few months here as well. So really excited to do that. And then, one of the things that we're really excited about is, I know I've been hesitant with releasing specific names, and that's by design. The reason being is because I don't want to steal the spotlight for them. One of the things that we want to make sure that we can do is really highlight all of these use cases and give these DApp developers and partners their own unique day to really explain their use case, get the community excited, and actually explain to you, without all the nuance of having every other use case thrown in there as well, show their use case to the world. And so on the SE team, the marketing team, we're combining forces to provide visibility through a marathon blog post series, explaining all of these exciting use cases of DApp developers and partners of SKALE that we'll be launching, again, the first few months here. You've probably already seen a few of them come out, and look forward to a few more over the next few weeks. So it's an exciting time for us, and I think I'll just leave you with stay tuned.
Yeah, exciting. So Christine, thank you. And next, I will take from Christine the marathon that she's already mentioned, and I'll also answer a lot of good questions about marketing. And so thanks to everybody who asked how community can help. And also thanks to everybody who asked what's the long-term vision for SKALE marketing. So here you go. First of all, right now, SKALE is in the middle of use case and partner and the DApp marathon, where every week we announce several partnerships, dApps, or exciting use cases that are being built and launched on SKALE very soon. Last week, we announced the partnership with Chainlink that Christine's team has led. This week, there is a number of exciting partnerships teed up. Next week, a number of exciting partnerships and dApps teed up. So everybody stay tuned. It's all over SKALE Twitter, SKALE Telegram, SKALE blog. So stay tuned, everybody. With what is going on with SKALE marketing, first of all, we are very developer-centric. And over the years, we've been building a very strong business-to-developer brand for SKALE. Now we are expanding our communications and our marketing, and we are increasing the pace at which we deliver news and updates to the community. So SKALE product and SKALE engineering team and SKALE solutions engineering team are building code. Our job is to release, to bring all these updates to you guys. So nearly every day since the beginning of the year, you see all the new stuff that's happening within SKALE and within the SKALE code. You see it on SKALE blog, on SKALE Telegram, and all over. So that's very important. We change the pace at which the comms are done. The next important update is a SKALE Ambassador program. So I wanted to say a massive thank you to everybody who signed up. We had over 500 people from around the world sign up for SKALE Ambassador program, and wanted to say thank you who participated in the 2 missions that have already taken place. So we had in the second mission, which was writing content and writing the crash course about SKALE and translating it into native languages of people who participate. We had over 120 submissions, and those were submissions of really high quality, so it was difficult to make the choice. So thank you very much to everybody. I'm very excited for those people who are going forward, and also very excited for everybody who participated. So just a very exceptional, really interesting program. And with Ambassador program, SKALE will be able to expand, to have communities support the international growth, which is a very big priority for this year. Support the international growth and support community growth in various languages all around the world, in blockchain communities all around the world. So very excited about this. A really big year for SKALE ahead. So with this, there is a question, Jack, and there is a lot of questions about upcoming listings and on whether there is any big news for SKALE that we can already announce.
Yeah, so hey, I want to address this, and I'm going to add another question on the back end of this that is a very common, frequently asked question. Okay, so number one, when will SKALE list? All right, on this exchange, that exchange, et cetera. Now, the reality is we've said this a bunch of times. This information is always highly confidential on behalf of the exchanges. Well, number one. Number two, there's just compliance and legal issues around if we do have any knowledge of being able to talk about it. So we'd love to just be able to say, hey, here's exactly what we know, but either there's a legal reason we can't or a confidentiality reason we can't with the partner, okay? Now, what I will tell you is the strategy, all right? So the strategy for SKALE, if you think about SKALE, SKALE is a utility token, okay? That means it has an actual functional use in the SKALE network. And in order for that utility token to have any value and provide security, people need to be able to take SKALE tokens that they earn, and they need to be able to sell them for things, you know, be able to use and get value in the real world. So I can't go buy a pizza with a SKALE token today. Maybe someday when SKALE's Internet of Blockchains, but that's not the goal, right? You'll probably be swapping SKALE into your, you know, USDC or central bank denominated currency or Bitcoin, right? You're going to be taking SKALE and move it, or Ethereum. You're going to be moving into a different asset to then purchase something in the real world. All right. Now, in order for that to work, that means we need to be on exchanges. SKALE needs to be on decentralized exchanges. It needs to be on centralized exchanges in every major region and on every major exchange. So there's a lot of effort ensuring, number one, in that there is utility. People are paying for SKALE chains with SKALE tokens. People are getting paid to run servers in SKALE. And then, hey, we have to support that liquidity. We need to make sure validators and delegators are able to turn in their hard-earned SKALE tokens for assets so they can buy coffee, pay their rent, et cetera, right? It needs to be a part of the ecosystem. So what I will tell you is we are making really good progress, and we will, our goal is to be on every major exchange in every major region. And you know, I think there's a lot of good progress that's happened, and stay tuned for updates, okay? Now, second thing I want to add to this, one of the most frequently asked questions I hear too is, well, okay, SKALE, we know it's one of the most phenomenally marketed developer platforms, and the team's passionate about the long term. As Stan said, there's people, everybody at SKALE, I think, wants to work on SKALE for the rest of their lives. We love it, okay? And we love what this community is building, all right? But then there's a question of, does the SKALE team know about marketing to non-developers, to doing traditional marketing? So one thing I want to say is, what we see typically, if you look at the top 20 or 50 tokens on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko, a lot of them have totally empty blocks. They're ghost chains. They don't have any usability. And they've focused entirely on marketing the token, not the value of the token or utility of the token. We took a different approach. We're marketing, we building, going and creating a real use and creating something of value at the core. And when you do that, then the other pieces are easy. It's so much easier to say, hey, look at the real partnerships that are here. Look at the real use cases. Look at the real traction. And so this is a long way of saying we have a very sophisticated multi-channel marketing effort that does take into consideration education of people in every country who aren't engineers, who are token enthusiasts, okay? We want to educate them. We want to create awareness. We want to help get them engaged. And so this is happening, but we did not want to put the cart ahead of the horse, and we wanted to have something real. And guess what? This is real, okay? There is something real here. And if you look at a lot of these top 20 tokens, which SKALE wants to be a top 20, a top 10 token, a top, blockchain in the world. Like we want this to be one of the most used blockchains in the world. And, we have to create value in order to do that. You can't fake your way there. So we're not naive. We understand the full gamut and the importance of every element, but we've prioritized to this point, I think, appropriately.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Now, next, let's talk about Ethereum too. Community is anticipating it. SKALE is anticipating it. So SKALE plus Ethereum too. What should everyone expect?
Okay, this is an easy one. SKALE was built to work with ETH2. ETH2, if we have the same amount of daily active users today that we, in 5 years, ETH2 alone will be, moderately sufficient, okay? The goal of ETH2 isn't to solve scaling. The goal of ETH2 is to be in a better foundational position. That's why there's only, I think, 32 shards right now. And there was 128, then 64, now it's 32, because they're recognizing by having a stronger foundational base with more interactivity between the shards, then they can interact better with layer 2 and scaling platforms, okay? And so if we're going to have 100 million users on Ethereum, ETH2 needs SKALE and SKALE needs ETH2, okay? All right, so great, Adam is right. ETH2 is our friend. ETH2 is the friend of the SKALE network. And guess what? SKALE is a friend of the ETH2 network, okay? We need them to be successful in order for us to reach our goals of having hundreds of thousands of servers supporting hundreds of millions of people across tens of thousands of applications.
Yes, thank you, Jack. Next question is actually for Christine. So on SKALE, thanks to the technology that is capable of supporting thousands of independent blockchains, all of which are connected to Ethereum, and developers will be renting the blockchains. So the question is, what happens with a rented chain if the developer forgets to pay the rent? Christine, would you please explain?
That's a great question. I think I want to reiterate one of the things that I think, Chadwick and Jack mentioned, which is how the SKALE manager contracts interact with creating these SKALE chains. And what's great is that the SKALE network deployed about 40 different smart contracts that have all been audited directly to Ethereum, which means that when a developer wants to spin up their SKALE chain, they would access one of these smart contracts to be able to retrieve their SKALE chain. So they're able to stake directly from there. And so as you can imagine, with that question usually comes, well, how do we decentralize this? So that way the dApp developer may not be the only one paying for the SKALE chain. And well, when you think about smart contract code, when it's just code, you can build anything around it. So dApp developers that we interact with, a lot of times they're thinking about this problem ahead of the time. They don't want the SKALE chain to run out. So they're working on a process to make sure that the community can actually stake for the SKALE chain for their specific dApp. If they don't have a community built for their SKALE chain, if, for example, let's say that they don't pay the SKALE chain fee, their SKALE chain doesn't just turn off. We're not going to be that cruel. In fact, we created this snapshot feature as well to give developers another way to store their data and come back later if they so choose. So with the snapshot data, they can actually take all the data from their SKALE chain, store it somewhere else, and then reload it when they're ready to start up a SKALE chain again. But again, that rented SKALE chain won't just turn off. You won't lose all of your data. And if you, as we're working with data developers, we're working with them ahead of this to make sure that they are aware to solve for this problem in advance.
Yeah, and I want to add to that, Christine, that was a great answer. And this is really about the future of business. And we think about business becoming more democratized. And decentralized is a way of, for me, saying we want democratized businesses where the people own the businesses and the people make decisions. And so like Christine said, one thing is you may have a developer that sets up the smart contract, that sets up the SKALE chain, but that person may go work somewhere else or may give up. And then there's 100,000 people using the product still. Guess what? They can collectively fund that chain. Now, let's say that nobody pays for it. Well, hey, guess what? We need to have rules and enforcement mechanisms that no person enforces, but the protocol enforces. And so if anyone's staking a token, anybody running a node, guess what? You want to get paid, right? And you don't, if you're not getting paid, if the people aren't paying their SKALE chain fees, and if that happens, like Christine said, well, they're going to get moved off, but there will be a snapshot so they can go retrieve, someone can go retrieve that data. So it's these systems, democratized businesses aren't democratized charities. These are still businesses, and people that run nodes want to get paid because guess what? They're not in it, hey, it's a community effort, but we need to make it a win, right? Imagine if there was a decentralized Uber and the drivers weren't getting paid. They'd quit driving, okay? So there has to be some enforcement.
That's great, thank you. So the next question, that is a really good question on economics. And what is the plan and roadmap to use the funds from previous rounds in order to support the growth?
Yeah, so there will be, I think it'll either be, we're waiting to hear from the foundation, but either be quarterly or twice a year. There'll just be a generic report, accounting report. So people know, I think a lot of foundations don't do this. Like you look at, even like, I won't name names, but even the biggest entities and foundations, we plan to push the Node Foundation to go even further with transparency. But I will tell you right now, there are about 30 people working full time on the SKALE network. There are probably 20 partners and entities. And so there's a lot of, I think, very efficient, smart spend going towards driving engineering, sales, marketing, partnerships, QA, audits, et cetera. So the money is being put to work, and the money is being put to work, I think, in a, I don't want to say frugal fashion, but in a fashion that is conservative and rational and aimed for long-term growth. A lot of projects ran out of money really quick, and they kept all the assets only in crypto, and then there's no core team working on it, and you have a ghost chain, right? We don't want that. This is designed for broader growth. But there will be ready for like really comprehensive reports. And, I'll tell you, there's a lot of what I would say best in practice strategy that is going towards use of those funds. And it's all being collected and recorded by the foundation. And there's a new, even a new person joining and the foundation and a team growing there that's independent, that will be responsible for these reports. So good question.
Given that SKALE is the network that's built to support dApps, Christine, a question on projects. What would be the best way to integrate a new project on SKALE?
The best way to integrate a new project on SKALE? You mean as far as like the process for like signing up for the SKALE Innovator Program, or?
Yes, that would be the best answer, I think.
All right. As far as getting signed up for SKALE, one of the best ways to do that is to either head over to our Discord at skale.chat and reach out to us directly, or if you go to the SKALE Network website, you'll find a form that allows you to apply into the SKALE Innovative Program. The SKALE Innovative Program, essentially, it provides quite a few incentives for dApp developers, especially as we're just launching. One of those incentives is, you kind of think of it like AWS credits for blockchain. We have SKALE credits for blockchain. And so for dApp developers that want to get started and try out the SKALE chain, we'll be able to stake on their behalf in the first few months. Afterwards, they'll be able to keep the chain going on their own, as Jack and I described earlier. But the process for getting up and running, definitely just reach out to us and we'll be able to get you in one of the earlier waves. Afterwards, though, it is meant to be self-service. We're not going to have to do the hand-holding too much longer. Essentially, once the smart contracts are able to accept dApp developers staking on their own, you'll be able to head directly to one of our dashboards, request your SKALE chain there, stake on your behalf for the community or for the dApp, and then your SKALE chain will just be provided to you. So we're moving towards that direction, but in the meantime, definitely fill out one of those forms or reach out to us in Discord.
Yeah, by the way, that reminds me of something very cool I want to share that we're seeing firsthand. So many developers are seeing the value of being not just on the side of the network where you're renting a SKALE chain, but our application partners for the SKALE network are actually starting to stake tokens. And some of them too are signing up to run nodes. And so if you think about it, if you have an application, let's say we have a major game or DeFi application or music streaming service or something, a decentralized social network. If they staked like $10,000, $20,000 worth of SKALE tokens, equivalent USD or Swiss franc or euro of SKALE tokens into the network, they're going to make about a 1.1% return on that stake. And you know what? They can use those fees to keep paying their fee for their SKALE chain. So by providing security to the network and staking their money in the network, they actually for free get to run their chain. And so it's a virtuous cycle where they become part of the group that stakes, and then some of them are actually going to set up a node, and then they'll make even more return, and then they're contributing firsthand to the security. They're really good developers, and they're going to have stake, and it's going to pay entirely for their community's chain, which is a really cool. It's a future of business. Business is not going to be, with decentralized networks, is not going to be so static and binary where someone's a customer, someone's a vendor, right? It becomes more fluid, and actually you get better performance, better results, better security, you get better customer service when you're a customer and a service provider.
So the next question, I think everybody will be very interested to hear the answer to, is the sharding. So how is SKALE's approach different or better or similar to sharding? And also that is a very similar to this question on the rollups. So let's draw some parallels. Let's explain the differences.
Yeah, so the difference between SKALE and sharding is SKALE is a weakly coupled system, and sharding is a strongly coupled system. So in sharding, you also have blockchains, but they are strongly dependent, and which means that if one crashes, it will affect others. And SKALE is more like internet. If you guys remember, maybe it will date me, but when internet started, and there were different types of computers. They were like supercomputers. So supercomputers were tightly coupled machines, and people thought that the future were like, if you read like science fiction from 60s, people thought that the future would be this huge supercomputer, this tightly coupled machine that does the computation. And it turned out that internet won because a weakly coupled system survives better. You can kill like 10% of computers on internet and it won't notice because it will reroute traffic and reroute computational power. So when the system becomes complex, actually a weakly coupled system is better. than strongly coupled. So in our case, if you have your scale chain, it can interact with the rest of the world in the same way as your computer on internet can interact with the rest of the world. And the shard is much more strongly coupled system. It's one big thing as compared to many things weakly coupled interacting with each other. So that's sharding. That's why you can't scale. For instance, with ETH2, you can scale to 32 shards, maybe 64 shards, maybe 128 shards. The same, I think, with Polkadot, they want to scale to 100, I think. So this, you can't really scale to millions. And this weakly coupled system, the beauty is that you can scale as much as you want because they're just weakly interacting. And that's why internet was able to scale from the very, very slow thing to the thing where it's now, where you can watch video and do pretty much anything on the internet. So there's a difference for shards, but shards can be useful. And I think ETH2, with shards, if they make ETH2 like 60 times faster or 100 times faster, it's going to be really, really important for us because we base our security. ETH2 is our foundation. And as we just discussed, even as a foundation, it's slow. We're paying lots and lots of gas fees now on the ETH1, even though it's just a foundation. We're just registering our nodes on it. Even to register a node, it's expensive. So as far as rollups, it's a bit different. So I think there are pretty much three camps in this in the blockchain world now. There is like the camp of ETH compatible blockchains. There is like us. There's a camp of non-ETH compatible blockchains like Polkadot or Dfinity, for instance. And there is a camp of people who are saying, okay, let's just have one single blockchain and then connect non-blockchains. So non-blockchains, they have many different phases. There are rollups and side channels and plasma and this and that. The idea is pretty much to add something which is not really a blockchain, but it speeds it up, some type of an accelerator. And so we looked into this and decided it may be useful in some cases, but it's not really the mainstream for several reasons. One reason, and the most important reason, is that you can do everything with a blockchain. So an internet of blockchains can do everything. It can replace the entire internet as we see it now. It can replace Google, it can replace Facebook, it can replace Uber, all of the things that you're used to. So you can do anything. And because you can do anything using an internet of blockchains, you don't need anything else. Like if you can do anything on internet using a browser, why do you need to invent something else? Usually people like simplicity. So because of simplicity, adding more things that makes things more complex usually doesn't work. And so that's one thing about rollups and all non-blockchains acceleration solutions that we don't think will actually favor them. And another big thing with non-blockchain solutions is blockchain is the only thing in the world which is truly decentralized. And that's kind of the genius of Satoshi Nakamoto. It's a set of computers which are totally symmetric. Like, on Scale chain, if you have like 16 computers, all of them have the same rights. So if you kill one of them, the rest continue operating. And that really helps to fight government bureaucracy. As I mentioned at the beginning, blockchain started and succeeded as a tool to fight government bureaucracy, for people to have their rights, to be able to freely exchange money, to stay anonymous in some cases. That was the driving force for blockchain. And rollups and all of the non-blockchain solutions are much more vulnerable because they are centralized. And as a centralized party, they are vulnerable to government intervention, but also many other things. Like, because it's a single party, it can manipulate, it can reorder transactions, it can do all kinds of things. So basically, if you want to do something decentralized and you try with some architecture, you will ultimately always arrive at an architecture where you have a number of computers which are all symmetric and they talk to each other. And that's pretty much blockchain, as we know Satoshi Nakamoto invented. And again, it's really interesting website I recently found that lists Satoshi's writings. It was very clear. So Satoshi believed that, first of all, one needs to have really fast kind of a core chain, like what we think like ETH1 now or ETH2. But then on top of it, he was really clear that the rest of it also have to be blockchains. And that's what we are building. At Scale, we are building an internet of blockchains.
Jack, you are muted.
I know we're running out of time, but I just want to summarize something really critical because Stan said a lot. I think one thing to take away is there's a lot of techniques to scale Ethereum that require software to run on one trusted operator, okay? Blockchains say we don't trust anyone, we trust an equation. We trust majority of operators that run the same software. And a roll-up operator or ZK or optimistic roll-up is putting at any given time all the truth on one node, one computer. And that equates to centralization. And then there's techniques to try to say, hey, let's try to randomize who is going to run that software at that given moment. But then, hey, when you get to that point, why aren't you just using numbers and majorities and math? Like, why don't you just run a blockchain? So kind of it's usually the best answer is the one that's the most simple, yet sophisticated and proven. And in this case, that's why Scale is an internet of blockchains. So, and that's why we believe in this approach. And I think the pain and cost of being centralized for decentralized finance and decentralized networks will become very apparent in the future with governance, because entities that really aren't decentralized are going to have to follow the rules of centralized entities with KYC, with all of the requirements that you need to do if you're running a traditional business. So it's either you really be decentralized or not, and we're taking the path of decentralization and supporting that for application partners. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Jack.
All right, Jenia, go ahead. You want to wrap up?
Yes, I wanted to wrap up, wanted to thank everybody, and wanted to thank the community and all the projects and those Scale partners that also were able to join the AMA today. I can see that there is the Music Point team in our chat, in the chat pod, greeting everybody. I know that a number of other projects were also planning to join. So thank you, everybody. Excited for the Ambassador Program, excited for the marathon, the use case and dApps marathon that Scale is in right now, and excited for the massive technology and mainnet-related tech upgrade that's rolling out early February. So thank you, guys, and stay tuned for the next AMA.
Next month. We'll see you next month, okay? And be ready for a lot of updates and fun, exciting traction in the interim.
And in the meantime, I just want to mention that if you want to contribute to Scale open source project, please contact us, because we have all kinds of ways to help you, including even some token grants. And you could, if you want to contribute to Scale, you could really start even with a small contribution. Maybe you want to help us to write a document. Maybe you want to help us to actually make better code. Anything will be appreciated, and there are two things that you can actually get from this. First of all, maybe some token grants. Second thing, if you are a college student or you want to get more experience in software engineering, that's definitely something that can get you, help your resume. We could give you references. Anything that you actually think puts people into open source, please consider helping and contributing to Scale.
Yeah, that's great. And guys, everybody who asked a good question will get a t-shirt, and we will update you through Scale Telegram. So on Scale Telegram today, later, Stellan from Scale marketing team will post a short message on how you guys can get the Scale t-shirt. So exciting. And
all right, everybody.
Will be delivered to you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for all of you all over the world. It's an amazing community that's growing here, and we're excited to be part of it. Thank you.